They say love conquers all, but what happens when love becomes a weapon? When a billionaire's son humiliates his pregnant wife at their own anniversary party, turning celebration into devastation, he unleashes a storm he cannot control. What follows isn't just revenge, it's a reckoning. Three brothers will rise, an empire will crumble, and one woman will discover that the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. Stay with us, because this story will break your heart before it heals it. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We read every single one. The Crystal Gardens ballroom glittered like a frozen dream. Chandeliers hung like captured starlight above marble floors so polished they reflected every lie, every secret, every smile that didn't reach the eyes. Tonight was supposed to be perfect. Maya Bennett stood at the center of it all, her champagne-colored gown flowing softly over her 6-month pregnancy. The dress had been her mother's choice, a symbol of elegance and grace. But tonight, Grace felt fragile as glass. Across the room, her husband, Marcus Sterling, stood surrounded by business partners and admirers. Beside him, draped in crimson silk, was Victoria Lane, his assistant, his confidant, his betrayal made flesh. She touched his arm too often. He never pulled away. Maya forced herself to breathe through the tightness in her chest. She knew people were watching. They always watched. Every camera loved a tragedy dressed in diamonds. She walked toward him, each step heavier than the last. The orchestra played a waltz that drowned out her heartbeat. "Marcus," she said softly when she reached him. He looked at her the way one looks at an outdated painting. "Maya, you should sit down, the baby." Her voice trembled. "I just wanted to say hello to our guests." Victoria tilted her head, lips curling into a smile sharp as broken glass. "Guests, darling, I'm practically family now. Marcus and I have been working so closely." She raised her champagne glass, the liquid catching the light like blood. "You should rest. Stress isn't good for mothers." Gasps rippled through nearby guests. Maya's smile cracked. "You don't belong here." Marcus's voice turned cold. "Don't embarrass me, Maya, not tonight." The words struck harder than a slap. Before Maya could step back, Victoria moved closer, her heel catching the hem of Maya's gown. The champagne glass slipped, shattering across the marble, splashing crimson across the pale fabric. The room froze. "Oh my," Victoria said sweetly. "I didn't see you there." Maya bent instinctively, hands shaking, trying to protect her dress, but Victoria shifted her weight. The sharp stiletto pressed against the silk near Maya's stomach. Then she leaned forward, applying pressure. Time stopped. The music died. The crowd held its breath between horror and disbelief. Maya's eyes widened. "Stop," she whispered. Victoria's smile didn't fade. "Accidents happen." Pain exploded like fire. Maya gasped, her knees buckling as she fell to the cold marble. Her hands clutched her belly. The sound of her cry mixed with shattering crystal. Marcus stepped forward, not to help but to watch. His expression remained eerily calm, like a man observing a scene he secretly approved. "She tripped," he told the rushing security guards. "Handle it quietly." "No," Maya cried weakly. She stepped on me." Cameras flashed, phones recorded. Guests whispered, torn between pity and curiosity. Then a voice cut through the chaos like thunder. The ballroom doors burst open. 3 men entered, tall and commanding, dressed in black. The room fell into stunned silence. The first man, Daniel Bennett, had eyes that could cut through steel. Behind him stood his brothers, Ethan and Lucas, radiating a presence that demanded respect. Daniel's voice filled every corner. "Turn off the music." The orchestra stopped instantly. Lucas rushed to his sister, dropping to his knees beside her. "Maya," he whispered, his hands hovering over her stomach. "Who did this?" Her lips trembled. "Victoria, Marcus." Ethan turned to the projector operator. "Show the security footage, now." Within seconds, the LED wall lit up with the recording. The entire room watched Victoria deliberately press her heel against Maya's abdomen. The replay silenced even the skeptics. Marcus's jaw tightened. "This isn't what it looks like." Daniel stepped toward him, voice deadly calm. "It looks exactly like attempted murder." Reporter cameras exploded like lightning. Victoria trembled. It was an accident. She walked into me. Lucas stood, his face pale with fury. You call this an accident? You almost killed her baby. Ethan gestured to security. Seal every exit. No one leaves until police arrive. Marcus raised his voice. You don't have authority here. Daniel looked him dead in the eye. Watch me. The tension crackled electric. Guests backed away as the brothers formed a protective wall around their sister. Maya, conscious but weak, whispered, Please, take me away from here. Lucas lifted her carefully into his arms. Camera lights flickered across her face as they carried her toward the exit. Daniel turned to Marcus one final time, his voice low and final. You've made your last public appearance as a man of power. From tonight on, the world will know exactly what you are. And for the first time that night, Marcus looked afraid. The headlines screamed across every screen by dawn, Sterling heir caught in assault scandal. Inside Bennett Tower, the brothers hadn't slept. Daniel stood at the window, watching the city wake beneath him. Ethan reviewed legal documents. Lucas paced like a caged storm. The video is everywhere, Ethan said quietly. They can't bury this. Daniel's reflection in the glass looked carved from stone. Then we make sure justice isn't buried either. At the hospital, Maya lay in bed, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. Dr. Sarah Chen checked her vitals, then smiled softly. The baby's heartbeat is strong. You're both fighters. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. Where are my brothers? On their way, Sarah said. But Maya, the press is demanding a statement. Marcus's lawyers are already spinning this as an accident. Maya stared at the ceiling. They want to make me invisible again. When her brothers arrived, she was sitting upright, her eyes steady despite exhaustion. Daniel knelt beside her bed. You don't have to face them. She shook her head. Yes, I do. They humiliated me in public. I won't hide in darkness while they lie. Moments later, hospital doors opened and Maya appeared under the morning light. She wore a simple cream shawl over her hospital gown. Behind her, the three brothers stood like shadows of steel. Daniel spoke first. My sister and her unborn child were assaulted at a public event by Victoria Lane, with Marcus Sterling's full knowledge. We will not be silenced. Maya stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. I survived not because I was strong enough, but because my child refused to let me give up. Justice must speak louder than fear. The reporters fell silent. The image of a wounded woman standing before the world became the headline before words even left their mouths. The courtroom filled faster than anyone anticipated. The Sterling name had ruled the city for decades. No one believed it could fall. Marcus entered in a black suit, expressionless. Victoria was brought in separately, wrists cuffed. Camera flashes made the marble walls glow. When the footage played, silence swept the chamber. Every gasp, every click of Victoria's heel, every second of Maya's pain echoed through the room. Then Ethan played the audio recording, Marcus's voice, cold and unmistakable. Do it. Make her regret showing up tonight. The courtroom erupted. Victoria began to cry. He made me do it. He said if I didn't, he'd destroy me. Marcus turned on her. You're lying. Daniel stood slowly, voice measured but sharp. You've lied long enough, Marcus. The judge leaned forward, fury in her eyes. The court cannot ignore evidence of this nature. Both defendants will remain in custody pending trial. As police led them away in handcuffs, the crowd outside roared. Maya stepped into the hallway, tears glistening. Lucas caught her before she stumbled. It's over, she whispered. Daniel answered quietly. No, this is where it begins. 1 year later, Maya stood before a new building made of glass and light. The sign read, the Phoenix Foundation, dedicated to survivors of domestic violence and abuse. She held her daughter Hope in her arms, 1 year old, bright-eyed and curious. A year ago, Maya began, her voice steady, I stood in darkness. I thought being broken meant being finished, but I learned that from ashes we rise stronger. This foundation exists because one fragile heartbeat refused to stop. From that survival came purpose. Applause thundered through the hall. Behind her stood her brothers, Daniel, Ethan, and Lucas, proud but humbled. Maya climbed 5 steps and placed a bouquet of white lilies where she'd once fallen. "This is where I fell," she said softly, "and this is where I rise." As twilight settled, Maya stood on the rooftop garden, hope sleeping in her arms. Her brothers joined her, watching the city lights shimmer below. "What will you tell her?" Daniel asked gently. Maya smiled. "I'll tell her that she was born from courage, that her heartbeat kept me alive, and that every time the world felt cruel, I looked at her and remembered, love is always stronger than fear." The wind carried her words into the night. Below them, the foundation's sign glowed. "From ashes we rise." If this story moved you, if you've ever felt invisible, silenced, or broken, know this: your story isn't over. Every ending is a beginning in disguise. Drop a comment below telling us what moment touched your heart the most. Your words matter, your voice matters, you matter. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances. Subscribe if you believe survivors deserve to be heard. Share this with someone who needs to remember their strength today. Remember, the darkest nights produce the brightest stars. And you are someone's light. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep rising.